Thank you everyone for joining us for MOAD's 16th annual Kwanzaa celebration. My name is Nia McAllister and I'm the Public Programs Manager at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. As we begin, I want to acknowledge the spaces that we're occupying. Though we're gathered virtually, we recognize that non-native people to this land are descendants from settler occupiers or descendants of those forcibly brought to this continent. MOAD occupies the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, and we pay our respects to the Ohlone people, their elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We encourage everyone to learn more about the native lands that you occupy by visiting nativeland.ca. Today is a day of celebration. We are here celebrating Kwanzaa, a time for us to come together in community and to reflect on our shared values. And what better way to do so through poetry and art? It is my honor to be hosting today's program, a poetry reading that will be featuring Daniel B. Summerhill, Tiffany Banks, and James Cagney. MOAD is grateful to be partnering with the San Francisco Village Project and are thrilled to be co-presenting today's program with them. And with that, I will be introducing our very first reader. Daniel B. Summerhill is Assistant Professor of Poetry and Social Action and Composition Studies at California State University, Monterey Bay. He has performed in over 30 states, the UK, and was invited by the US Embassy to guest lecture and perform in South Africa. His work has appeared in or is forthcoming from Columbia Journal, Rust and Moth, Button Poetry, Lily Poetry Review, Cogs, The Hellebore, and others. His debut collection, Divine, 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 is available now from Oakland-based Nomadic Press. His sophomore collection, Mausoleum of Flowers, will be published by Calvin Carey Press in April of 2022. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks, Nia. It's always a pleasure to read as a part of MOAD, any MOAD event, and especially today in celebration of the first day of Kwanzaa. I'm going to read a couple of poems from each of my collections, and I'll just jump right in. So this first one is called Concerning Fire, and it's from my first collection of poetry, Divine, Divine, Divine. I can hardly imagine all of this rage going to waste, how our bodies are anti-combustible anyway, how hard to imagine us feeling remorse for fire our skin has always been glazed in, a kind of clay we have claimed as skin or kin, a rage we've claimed as kin. Hard to imagine any other way of shedding light on injustice but through brimstone. Heat and equality are fundamental rights, and right now I choose to fan this flame. Been brewing for years. Yesterday was kindle. Sometimes all we need is to weep until our wells dry. Other times, all we have left is fire, and will burn anything attempting to put out our flame. Hard to imagine being on the wrong side of all this smoke. And then in the spirit of unity, especially in these past couple of years, I've been thinking about what that means, right? What does unity mean? What does it mean to be together in a time where we're not supposed to be around each other, right? And I thought about this through the lens of congregation. You know, I grew up in the church, right? And so I had this idea of a congregation, right? And so I was curious about, you know, how do we unpack that word even further? So this is a poem called Congregation. The second after untying our do-rag is a congregation. The collective's thundering gasp, its benediction and stretched line running from forehead to ear, anticipatory rock and lean during an onset, the beat. Everyone's a baritone for Big's sake. We, on cue, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, wrap the rest instead of finishing this poem, you started doing it anyway. Welcome to the congregation. Cupid Shuffle isn't a dance, but a congregation. We dancing, but ain't never in a line. End up wherever our shoes take us, spinning twice more than the song says. Uncle so-and-so's hip don't hurt today. Body ain't rebelling today. Our hips are a congregation. Got me fucked up is a congregation. The same way I wish a motherfucker would is both prayers or rhetorical devices, as if to say, we disagree, but I got God on my side. Cool. And then I'm gonna read a poem called Aunt Georgia Makes Fried Chitlins. Being Black takes a certain kind of magic to trick generations into believing there is a recipe to make intestines useful for something other than transporting shit. Even when the body breaks down food, it is sure to disregard the scraps, the poison. How then have we been able to take bile and digest it, to salt the distaste of nigger, drop the E and R, adding an A and spitting out brother, the same way we took grits and made them edible too. And then I'm gonna read a longer poem called Mama. And it came from a conversation I had, well, first of all, with my mother. I was just picking her brain about her childhood, her growing up and all that good stuff. And it came across that, or occurred to me, and she also kind of said it, that she had never experienced like joy. And I want to be clear about the distinction between like happiness and joy. And when she mentioned that, it wasn't that she had never experienced happiness, right? Like the small spurts of happiness, right? Or even like longer spurts of happiness. But it was more so the idea that there was never a sustained joy, right? Unstained, right? Joy. And so I talked to my sister and we were, rapping about that whole idea and like what my mom been through and all that good stuff. And I wrote a poem about that conversation and about my mother. And it's called Mama. Mama knows what it's like to hold and not be held. Mama Nancy, who is not my mama, but is the oldest mama I have a name for. In this way, history is young, not because it is young, but because it goes only as far back as we have a story. And I'd like to think memory counts for something. 3 women separate her from my mama, each of them a comma. Each of them should have been a semicolon, but we know genealogy isn't forgiving that way. I'm the son of all 4, and I am told by mama that her earliest recall of joy was being handed a quarter to buy a hamburger and still having 15 cents left over to buy penny candy. This girl, a woman, a mother, who has never been to the bottom of the earth, and not that any long haul flight will buy you happiness, but being awakened by the unswallowed sun over the Southern Ocean seems like a cheat code for sustained joy. I say sustained in the sense that the sunrise is the only infinite rhythm I've seen. This isn't a poem about joy so much as it is a poem about dying without ever knowing it. But mama, you've always stricken me as someone who champions distance over depth, or faith over long suffering. In this way, I suppose joy isn't the antonym to pain, but the antibody. It is 1998, and you have just given me a pink food stamp, enough to buy a zebra cake, Kool-Aid jammer, and 3 packs of now and laters. The walk to the corner store, my faith. The slow skip back home, small joy. Here, my perception of small is grand, enough to get me through the immensity of summer. How my mother summoned enough jubilance to share with me its blood. It is 2018. I think of my trip to South Africa as a metaphor for food stamps, the flight, my faith, the flight, my joy. What I don't deserve, not considered here. The miles between me and the earth, stretched faith, carrying me back home. I search out my window for land, but find nothing green, just blue, plenty blue to feel small enough to remember my small mama with outstretched hands, waiting for a quarter, for joy, a girl, a woman. Dear mama, your water will come, and the sun will brass knuckle its way out of the ocean with enough triumph to make you feel golden. The ocean is the only constant here. It delivers us all. I'd imagine it'll deliver you too. If not you, your body. If not your joy, your pain. It will carry it in its mouth back to shore like a flood. Um, okay, I'm gonna keep chugging, y'all, and read a poem called Territory. Um, Territory. I watch into the cosmos and feel infinitely small. How the homies must feel when they watch The Birth of a Nation or any other carbon copy slave movie. No matter how triumphant the battle, the victor is always abundantly white. I can't help but think about the boys I grew up with who claim to run the city, not in colonial terms, but as anatomy, how they've learned since birth to measure land, not by geography, but through flesh and the taking of it. In this way, perhaps the obsession has always been the body and the destruction it's capable of wielding or falling victim to. In this way, they too seek something new, if not imaginative, if not through their hands, then through their bodies. In this way, we're huge after all, how the few feet separating our Nikes does nothing to render the entire sky between us. Okay, so another joint from Divine, Divine, Divine. This one's called Junior Drank His Coffee Black. And by black, I mean no shade other than his oil slick skin was allowed to get close. Enough to share the same air. If he was reading this, he'd say, that goes for dominoes, checkerboards, cows, penguins, zebras, soccer balls, and cars too. Say, white vehicles aren't allowed in the same lane on the highway. Say, I got a double barrel and bail money for anyone who becomes brave behind the wheel. Junior speaks only when spoken to. Sir and ma'am bookend each sentence unwieldily. Story goes, Junior's battalion, a slew of white boys weary of napalm, sent him into the gray of the unknown to get confirmation. And Junior drank his coffee black ever since. The day after Fruitvale. Because Oscar Grant's killer hadn't been cuffed, a Volkswagen Passat was in flames. Outside my apartment window, because I lived uptown and the Oakland police station was 2 blocks away, and because folks care more about cars than bodies, and because my people know that, shit goes up in flame. Because our protest is mistaken for riot and not peace, my people's eyes tend to tear, gas fills our blocks, and because Oscar laid in his own blood, my people lay in front of cars on Interstate 880, and because folks care more about a commute than a community, it's illegal to march on the highway, and because my people know that, they march on the highway. Because mourning is an empiricist on ecstasy, and words often lack sense. The crust of stone in hand and half-drunk Molotov cocktail is the greatest feeling, and standoff with blue and black, and because moms would have seen me on TV, I placed the amplifier in my second-story window instead. And because music sings in our name, my people sung, "We Gonna Be All Right" on 23rd Street. Footnotes for Kanye, after the homie Jasmine Mans. 1. The first time I heard Pray for Kanye was at a Black Lives Matter rally. Not that prayer is antithetical, but prayer next to anti-Blackness is a flood, not a life raft. 2. As if there isn't a grandmother's last breath interceding for even the most defiant among us. 3. There is something to be said about dying before death, how suffrage isn't always the antecedent, how some of us find glory in drowning. 4. Politics have taught me your desires, yea, no matter how deviant, don't outweigh your means, and for that I am afraid. 5. I asked my mama about a world without the woman who birthed her whole at Wauwatosa. She smiles and asked me to pass her the salt. 6. I'm afraid, because any day without a mother's smile is no day at all. 7. Because if not God, my mama. 8. If not a life raft, a flood. 9. I'm afraid because you ain't talked to God in so long. 10. Yea, are you more brave than free, or more ignorant than a housefly missing the door? 11. Do you miss the door? 12. When I listen to No Church in the Wild, your voice is both the mob and the non-believer. 13. Are you still famous in your hood? 14. Because these kids still want to be you. They want to rap and make soul beats just like you, even though you just not you. 15. Tell me now, where's the South Side? Cool. All right, I just have a couple more poems for y'all. This next one is a long title. It's called What I Imagined My Mother Meant When She Said, You sound like one of those conspiracy theorists, after I tell her nobody should be in prison. And it has an epigraph by Hanif Abdurraqib, which says, I am interested in what it feels like to imagine yourself as large and immovable as the sky. What I imagined my mother meant when she said, you sound like one of those conspiracy theorists after I tell her nobody should be in prison. Imagination is a possibility we don't yet have a language for. When you've been taken, you focus on the pieces that haven't. What's in front of you, she says. There's less room for possible here. What I tell my mother Sunday at dinner. The sky we look up to is larger than the world it surrounds. And we didn't have a name for heaven until we decided some people don't deserve to be there. Or Kyle Rittenhouse sitting in a bar with neo-Nazis makes him the devil or God, depending on your definition of salvation. Or my mother and I watch outside my living room window. I decide only a deity could shake a tree that big, so I ask the wind to show me its palms, to check for scarring. I want to see the battle wounds, the bruised joints, buckling skin, and deliverance resting on tender ankles. We once watched the earth shift against itself, as if the Cascades reconsidered their location, and I am reminded she has witnessed possible. I am a nod to my mother's hands, outstretched over me like an invocation, asking the day to end before I do. And lastly, a short joint called When We Say It's In Us, Not On Us. Okay, so boom, we die but don't die, like hip hop or Tupac, but more serious like demigods playing spades. Cutthroat, we bleed and flowers bloom where the drops land, American fruit, skin bruised, juicy, rich in vitamin A, B, C, D, and endurance, got plenty of soul, call it the fight organ. It stays and stays like kin. Our blood got fist, and if that don't make sense, consider this. You can't make gumbo without the root. Thank y'all.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much, Danielle. That was absolutely incredible. Everyone, please give another virtual round of applause for Danielle. Thank you so much. Next up, I would like to invite Tiffany Banks. Tiffany Banks, aka the Poetic Pharaoh, is a mother, poet, writer, event curator, mistress of ceremonies, motivational speaker, and healing arts worker from Vallejo, California. Banks organizes and hosts Bay Area spoken word and artistic showcase events, such as Speak on It and Art Temple. Her first book of poetry and short stories, Selah, was published in October 2018. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Moad, for having me. That was amazing, Daniel. I just want to give you a round of applause. A verbal round of applause. Thank you for having me again, Nia and Moad. This was very much aligned. Hi, you guys. I see you. I caught a cold this week, so I will ask for you guys to be patient with me as I share my pieces, but the show must go on. So I decided, no, the message is going to get out despite the fact that I was feeling under the weather. Thank God we moved to Zoom. And I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. This first piece I wrote some time ago, and I don't know if anyone has ever gone through a transformation. And much like the caterpillar and the butterfly analogy, when you go through a transformation, there is a phase. There's a phase where the caterpillar, the cells of the caterpillar and the cells of the butterfly go to war. And in order for the transformation, the new form to take shape, that war, and there must be a conquest. And so I wrote this piece for anyone who's ever gone under or gone through a transformation and they were at war with themselves and for whatever reason felt disconnected from their norm. So I'm gonna go ahead and scoop myself back. I titled this Swedish Treasure, and it's still untitled, but that's where it is right now. And this is for anyone who has ever been disconnected from themselves in any shape or form as they undergo or as they've undergone the transformation phase. Oh, I sit upon my treasure. I sit upon my gold. I sit upon my fortune, and for so long I did not know, like the moon's favorite forest. I be my own mystery. The tides in my closeness with others, my sound, my silence, my action, my stillness, my sex, my celibacy. Oh, the sweetness of mine is like the pineapple. Like sweet potato pie, I thank my guides for redirection, for gentleness. The sweetness is perspective, the music that dances its way into instrument, the hips that finally get to flow into trance. The sweetness is this life. The infinite fabric of time, woven in and out of our stories, often passed down, hidden as the sound is muted, leaving generations with barren passions, inciting an uprising, a movement, a deepness, a need to excavate the tombs of muted voices and forgotten stories. Oh, dancing expresses my freedom. And for so long, I could not move until I began to call for my spirit to come back to me. I began to beat on the drum, to bang on the walls, to declare war with the ground beneath my feet, evict emotions, squatting in the basement of my heart, force feed my body with soul's bread, quench my mind with the water of language, pour libations for the version of me who passed away, burn candles for my psychological transition into new form, chant beaded prayers for the carcass of childish ways. Oh. Inside of the river's temperament, I beg for the tantrum to still. I desire to move again. I call for my spirit come back to me. I beat on the drum, bang on the walls, declare war with the ground beneath my feet, make peace with the ocean, and ask her to forgive my neglect. I prepare an altar for proverb, for gospel, for Quran, for scroll, for Rig Veda, for Tipitaka, for Veve, for dialect, for diction, for symbol, for language, for literature, for poetry. I roll blunts of necessary, uncomfortable conversations. I shroom into the world of my childhood. Ayahuasca, travel to visit my next incarnation. I will move again. I command my spirit, come back to me. So I dose myself. I dose myself with the strongest elixir known, the artist medicine. I begin to write. Thank you. That's that first piece. How's everybody doing? How is everyone? Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me just take a sip of this tea. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my next piece. Happy winter, everyone. In our urban community, we call wintertime cuffing season. So that's, for those of you who don't know, cuffing season is when we, either with our mates or the singles, they look for somebody to cuddle up next to because, it's winter. You need somebody with warmth to help you out during those months. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit about cuffing season. Is that okay? Let me go ahead and pull my piece up. So happy cuffing season. I think I want your cup of tea. I think you've tried to put a spell on me, but I offer myself. I offer myself as a living sacrifice to your ritual, and as the cinnamon evaporates in submission to the flame, your Pluto aspects my Neptune, and we create an alternate reality, love maze. We follow one another in and out of space. Bending to each other's will in spaces that suddenly become claustrophobic. We call out for one another, our voices running out of echo in this same space, but separated by fiery veils, barricades of addiction, of codependency, of mommy issues, of daddy issues, of light and dark skin, of ex-lovers, of baby daddy, baby mama drama, of not seeing the value in one's own existence, therefore chasing after external validation, hoping it penetrates deep enough to get inside of us. Fiery veils of illusions that do not align with reality, plummeting one's ego into a dungeon whenever reality snares its ugly teeth at your ass. And I still want your cup of tea. I still want it. I want your honey in it. I want your eye contact in it. I want your honesty in it. I want your pace as you navigate my body's terrain in it. Stir this honey in slowly. Taste it to make sure that the temperature is right before you serve it to me. Taste it again to let me know that it's safe. May it be sweet like the nectar and the tree sapling. May I be your nature's keeper. But only if we first can keep our own. plant our own gardens, provide our own essential needs, preserve self, unlock our own unconsciousness, heal our own wounds, be our own escapes, hold our own space, be our own vices, come to grips with our dualities and learn how to balance between the two, like the lamb and the lion, like the masculine and the feminine. How beautiful is this orbit that we do around each other, two true keepers of their own nature. This is worthy of outlining the hieroglyphs. I give gratitude for your cup of tea. It's sweet, it's warm, it's spicy. And I give thanks because when I look inside this cup, I'm forced to see me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and transition to this next piece. I just wrote it not long ago, but it physically, tangibly have the piece, but I've been writing it for years, since a child. Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. I see you. This next piece I've been writing since I was a child, but the words finally came through the ink onto my paper. So I'm going to read. It's hard for me to read. I could actually read both. Let me just go ahead and I'll read it from the computer. I have it in paper because there's something about my notebook that I still really, really love and cherish. I don't know. I know it's a technical age, but I still love the book, paper and pen, pencil, whatever you use. But this piece is new, like I said, and I titled this Medicine for the Mother Wound. Medicine for the Mother Wound. You consume the fire so well that the strings of your heart produce sound, being, place, existence, child. Your body is alabaster for eons of creative prose. Out from your womb are trees which outlive several incarnations. Your hands move the river into lands. Matter bends to your will. But did the dark waters of your nature hurt you so, to the point of consumption where you refuse to return to your shores? Your baby is there waiting, echoing the sounds you gave it. Your baby, you dwell in your deep waters so long that only external stimuli can bring you to surface, but only as shell and matter. You were God, but denied it. Now, in order to survive your remaining fragments of idea, you create new gods, whether it be dream, drink, drug, or dick. You now worship an inverted source, and your babies are missing inside of your whirlpool. Your tears fill the black ocean, and your heart plays the sad music. You hope that your babies find you by the sound, but the resonance is over and the worlds are divided. The unlikeness sets in motion an icy war. The only conquest is by more dark water. Your baby not having home with you means no home within them, therefore no home with another. A hazardous love story. And the babies are still lost inside of your dark, raging waters. The children do not surrender to the violent sea, however, and they fight the battle that you hurl them into. They fight for themselves, for their babies, for you and your tortured will. They find you cold inside of your own black hole. You didn't even realize how you got there. You blame them and refuse to come through. The baby's baby pours the libation, and cracks the code, alters the algorithm, changes the trajectory, shifts the paradigm, identifies the need, and finally is the one to create it from within. The baby's baby rejects the false offerings from the same demon that gave you drink and rips the friendly mask off its twisted face, calling it out by its many names, commanding its death. And your baby's baby reclaims authority over their own mind, over the way they feel, over their energy. And now through this clean flow, you are once again alabaster. Your heart can again produce sweet sound. Your words synthesize ever trees. You become the first love. Out from the womb, you re-emerge as mother. Again, you are God. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to leave you on this last note. And I don't know if I've already mentioned it. I may have. This is my first performance. I thought it would be my first in-person performance since the pandemic, but it's been a while. So this meeting, this gathering in the spirit of Umoja is very special for me because I had to take a break in order for me to write internally and physically. And this poem came when the pandemic hit. I was receiving so many messages during that time in 2020. And this for me was at least one of the messages that came from that moment in time when humanity felt or was hit with the reality that our human race was under some sort of transition is what I'll call it. I titled this Spirit Dancer in the Pandemic. Coursing sounds of false conquest, fabricated glory, clever misdirected loyalties, a lopsided agreement. We fight a war inside of ourselves in a revolve of mind where past become code and the movement is looping, causing days. We want something real good, but can't figure out what that is. So we overachieve, oversleep, overeat, overcompensate for what we believe we do not have, codepend on a mate we are not happy with, attached to a mistress, seek out a sugar daddy. We are in need. And when the foundation can no longer support the structure, the earth begins to quake, the winds begin to form, the waves rise above our levels, lightning strikes, and the trees are consumed by the fire. A liminal space now is void of creation, dark. Yours to create, to make space, to make choice, to align, to discover that something good. It'd be like the apocalypse, like trauma, like giving it up, like picking it back up, like getting that juice back, like knowing you never lost it, like tasting that juice and savoring it. It's like creating sacred space, like offerings to ancestors, like seeing not with eyes, like drum beats evoking spirit dancer, move like nothing can go wrong, darling, like the spirit world makes more sense now, don't it? And this world is your playground. It's like your baby's first steps, your work, your art, your legacy, your first business, your first fortune, watching your children cross thresholds you once did or never did. It's like fresh strawberries. It's like a warm shower, like good coffee, like pancakes, like sweet tea, like the breeze, like salt and pepper hair, like your great grandbabies kissing you and bathing you, kissing you goodnight just because. Yeah, that something good. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much. That's my
Thank
last
you so
piece.
much. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And everyone, please keep all of the affirmations coming. Thank you. Now, not last but not least, I would like to introduce James Cagney. James is the author of Black Steel Magnolias and the Hour of Chaos Theory, winner of the PEN Oakland 2018 Josephine Miles Award. His newest book, Martian, the Saint of Loneliness, is the winner of the 2021 James Lawson Award from the Academy of American Poets. It is due from Nomadic Press in 2022. And for more information, please visit jamescagneypoet.com. Welcome, James.
Thank you for that, Nia. Barigani, everybody, blessings and love and peace to everyone here in this circle. Nia and Moad, I thank both of you for continuously doing and representing us in art and community, and much love to Tiffany. That was an extraordinary set. And as Daniel, you're my hero. And blessings to both of y'all. And I'm so honored and grateful to be here in this circle with you guys. I would love to sit here and chat, but I don't want to burn up my time. So let's do some poetry. Let's hit it. This is called Untied. The tongue as knife as grenade. The tongue as pilot light to volcano. The tongue as butterfly shrapnel spraying radioactive glass. The tongue as battering ram, axe handle, desecrated cross, trigger. The tongue as begging puppy, as monster truck. The tongue Russian necktied for a joke. The tongue as assassin, a ninja jangling with blades, cross-stepping the grassy knoll. The tongue as wooden stake, silver bullet, an earthquake with lightning in its hair. The tongue begging kryptonite to freebase. The tongue as apple and serpent, rolling its jellied eggs into the ear. The tongue loaded, unlicensed, and steaming with cordite, trying to finish something that never should have started. The tongue, having kissed every wound from inside out, is jealous of bone. The tongue has heard of the heart, but doesn't believe in it, prefers the pulse in dice. The tongue as a wall, a trench, a gate, fool's gold in moonlight. The tongue tied into a straitjacket, scatting. The tongue, a lead weight dropped onto a garden of peonies, a nest of starlings. The tongue, misfired, misspoke, misplaced our last conversation. The tongue, armed, blows a hole through its nearest cheek. The tongue, thorny and uphill, single-bladed and double-barreled. The tongue as museum, snowing through autumn. The tongue gets it. Yes, yes, yes. But how it loves spitting no. I should, real quick, represent the book, actually, really quickly, Black Steel Magnolias and the Hour of Chaos Theory. I'm going to do a lot of poems on memory and family. So this is a piece, one of the earliest and oldest pieces in the book for my mom. This is called The Fire in Her Eyes Redefines an Apple. The ritual of fruit begins again in June, when buckets of smiling plums and blistered peaches arrive for her in cars, altering our kitchen into a steaming workshop. Soon, blackened pots boil with our life's winter blood. She quickly buries the dead in a cemetery of sugar, where apricots and pears await to be baptized and born again as jam and jelly. Late summer brings chopped cabbages, cucumbers, and ancient spices, all bathed in a sauna of hot vinegar and crushed red peppers. The walls of our kitchen come alive with the sweat of our ancestors who live again through recipe. The dead continue to feed the living with greasy fingers, stuffing our mouths with history's sweet cuisine. Mama leads us to her garden and motions over a field of greens, their vibrant tongues lapping sunlight like thirsty dogs. She tells us this is a lost art and warns that our wives will be useless to our children. Weeping, she presents the bouquet of her hands, fragrant with 40 years of stewed tomatoes, summer squash, sweet corn, and candied yams. She forecasts her death and instructs us to sprinkle her body with salt until her skin appears wild with dandelions. Place her in our biggest pot and simmer to a low gravy. Seal her in a glass jar tomb. Store her in a cool, dry place and wait until the fog of poverty settles in the valley of our ignorance, when there's only rainwater, credited bread, and the memory of meat. This is pretty much a list poem that I was kind of commissioned to write, working on a piece about home and houses and the housing crisis and thinking about what home, I guess, meant to me. So this is a weird sample of images from my house and from my childhood. This is called What Remains Eternal. A friend, a fence, a dog playing catch with rocks. Our names in porch sirens, nightly hymnals pleading into God's velvet cloak. A clothesline, a rotary phone, a sideboard flaking blue chip stamps. Antique flue quilts shedding panels of wintry leaves. A plum switch, a punch bowl, a fish tank spray cleaned on the lawn with a hose. Our valiant pets self-medicating prescriptions of grass, and grandpa scratching his sweaty back on a post. Sears catalog, mint and menthol, the spicy mouth of a hushed church purse. Closets grayscaled with uniforms, shoeshine kits. Rooms grinning in photographs and ceramic chicken dust catchers. Iron skillets, sage bell pepper, laundry baskets of collards and loud onions. Eggs denote spirit, drunken phantasms drizzling their ectoplasmic art down our smoke yellow walls. And there you go with that. Yeah. This is a piece called Preface to a Photograph, Dateline, Delano, California, 1976. You know what? I may have done this the last time I read for Moad, and I'm gonna do this right now again, actually, since I'm here in my kitchen. But the photograph in question that this poem is based on is that one right there. My father is the man in the cowboy hat. The man in the middle is my father's uncle, Eiley, who's lived in Delano, California. And that is cousin JD, who at the time lived in Anchorage, Alaska, came down, what I remember, for that weekend to go see their uncle and hang out. And that picture still remains. And this is the poem. Sorry, I was just gonna sit there with that image for a moment. This is the poem I wrote for that photograph. 3 Black men, spooned from the same bowl, stand embracing in my father's mobile home. The lightning flash of them frozen in the amber of 1976. Their rhyming saw blade eyes sparkle like lit matches. Men don't smile, but they are happy, arms interlocked long as the interstate. It is night. In every room where my father stands, there is a river. Here, a river of oil sweetened with perch laps the drawn curtains. 3 Black men, blues singers of borderless ache, soldiers, gamblers, cowboys, the mahogany concentration in my father's 10,000-mile highway stare, cousin JD in a 1970s plaid juicy fruit leisure suit, and their great uncle Eiley, a human spear in a tweed flat cap, chin up and flaring like a knife. And since we're here, this poem, based on almost the same image in a way. This is called House of Slams and Hollers. Who occupies the storefront houses at the crossroads? Shotgun houses like abandoned churches. One house slouched behind the musty aroma of trees. Windowsill radio chatters like a bird on caffeine. The living room smells swampy with ashes and bottle caps. Kitchen of vintage graveyard shift coffee, boiled viceroys, cicadas with exoskeletons of brandy, and chickens chained in the backyard. Night turns over, haunted with moths. Air cooled with shuffled decks and howling hounds missing hell. The methane of certain ghosts gets drawn like window shades, dealt in, poured shots at this place where the road crosses its legs like a gentleman. Here lies the uncharted territories of some blues, stigmata blues, razor blade blues, blues for lips just out of reach, blues screaming blouses of plaster down bedroom walls. Choirs of apocalypse blues ignite the red wicks of their tongues, sing harmony to calm Bluegill River for Saturday's baptism of hot lead. Dawn rises with fire on its mind, takes off its top hat. Names smile from his mouth in comets, false crosses. Anything not already on the ground, holding on, praying, done grabbed a guitar, a shotgun, and ran. What I would like to do is share something that's going to be in the new book, and this is just a chunk of it. And this came up during the stay-at-home order. Me stuck with my thoughts and thinking about my childhood and friendships that I kind of lost. Thought I was basically it's a study of my memory of being a boy. Full stop. So here's here's a piece from that. Yeah. Boys eat gravel, spit lit matches in fireworks or fortune telling. First tattoos of flame hushed with butter. First piercings of rebar and canines. First brandings with Monkey Ward's leather. Richer than rich. Jawbreakers paid with the currency of scabs. Peeled skin bananaed back into place. Seals of tribal scars and slashes to ward off death, despite cherry sweet blood defrosted and leaking. Pornographic vapor of roughhousing mutts, sensing the moon about to crest, fanged, thirsty, inventing capoeira in cardboard arenas of bone dust. Born clean from my mother, daily I dress myself in mud and axle grease, fish skin and coyote blood. Birds see me as the herald of death, kicking the confinements of silence. I dent every frame, crack every shell, test every system, even this cluster of nerves, the last on earth. If nothing gets tested, how will you know anything works? I perfectly dismantle anything unbroken. break land speed records on my Schwinn. Bionic with skill, I can fly. This body awarded with stitches. Every weekend, I am thrown together again in my father's Golgotha. Says he brought me here and wants his money's worth. And his money is bond, not sorry. He thumped sorry words out of my mouth. Words I suck too hard like bad candy. He says, love makes men weak. Save that word for when you start your first fire nobody can put out. And this is called Invention of Intimacy from the same project. We liked one another better than our fathers liked us. Our favorite stories were always myths involving vanquishing, soldiers eaten down to the bone, cities exploding at the feet of waltzing monsters, wrestlers locking, cradling, adjusting another's will, mechanics of pain. We jump-started together once we realized blood had flavor, anything with aroma, a plastic action figure, a ribbon of ripped fabric, a golden thigh, a spray of hair, its bushy rabbit, the soft medicinal roux of a tongue tracing, folding, Greco-Roman pantomimes. Touch me like you're blind. My ribs, my spine rhyme in braille, punctuation in hair, tiny commas, stuttering periods on sentences left incomplete, thought bubbles hiccuping ellipses, flashing fingers trigger a seizure in giggles. On the tarot card, the Tower, 'twas a joke that sent everything tumbling. Is this too inside, like short clothes seasoned for laundry? Red briefs, rare interior, scalding broth, spilling, spraying, springs, droplets. Boys armed with flowers promoted to guns, or swords beaten senseless on the fence post. Dancing dirty, auditioning for hell, nasty as shovels for ditches, or spoons still needing to be licked. And there you go, wow. I'm assuming that this is my final poem, which is all good, but Neo May Signal. And what I've never done, I've read this poem a couple of times, but I've never really explained what this poem is. And for us, for Kwanzaa, I would like to say that I was, I don't even know how to say that. I felt very, very disparate and felt like I needed a direct contact with God based on things that were happening in my life a bunch of years ago. And though I was raised a Christian strictly, and my grandfather was a preacher, through a story that I'd read in a writing group, I decided to do a ceremony for Yemaya. I'd heard of and decided to, I needed to contact a God. And it was very interesting and important to me as an adoptee with mother issues that Yemaya turned out to be the God of all gods, the female entity and energy over everything. I almost didn't even know that when I selected to go do a prayer and thanks. I'm gonna hurry the story up and say that I did a ceremony for Yemaya, and that actually came through in a way that's really beautiful and surprising, and you should ask me about one day. Because I'm not a practicer of that faith, I never actually went back as a thank you to her. And then finally, as I've been here and stuck in my house, I finally decided to go back and write a prayer of thanks to her for answering, for being there, for accepting me as an outsider. And this is that poem, and it is called Proposal. I make pilgrimage to the ancient temple of the sea, where I construct a driftwood altar of hydrangeas and grape hyacinths, and propose to you, my ocean, in your evening gown of lilac and fuchsia. Take these diamond sparks sizzling through my palm. Let me bring the hurricane and lay a bouquet of sunken ships full of watermelon and coconut in your private lagoon. Let these timid fingers soothe your capillary waves while you drop stitch centuries of quilted foam. To you, time and its trivia is a running joke. Go on and laugh the sundown while I wipe the sandpipers from the corners of your eyes. I've been taking cowrie shells for antidepressants. God help my superstitious doctors prescribing drugs that make society appear to be okay. My heart serrated and scratched after punishing affairs with emptiness. With your boundless scrolls of seawater, cleanse me down to my pilot light, here at the beginning of all waters, where spirit burns like a bonfire at dawn. And I thank you and love you desperately. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, James, for all of those poems and for treating us to some of that new work. Greatly, greatly appreciated. And I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all of our poets this afternoon. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you, James. This has been such a healing afternoon, and I'm so appreciative of each of you and all of the work that you're doing. And I want to thank all of our audience members as well. Thank you for being a part of today's Kwanzaa celebration. It's a challenging time, but we have much to celebrate and much to reflect on. And so I hope all of you are able to continue being in community with each other, both near and far, and continue this work. So please do stay tuned for more programming from MOAD. You can learn more by visiting moadsf.org. And with that, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day and celebrations. Please take care. Thank you.